chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina Speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerned. You can hear some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to
Good evening, Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Da-da! Happy Monday, everybody. Good afternoon and hello to our family near and far. How are you? Hope you're having a good and productive Monday and you've actually not been able to hold through with your New Year's resolutions. Let's hope you got a new start for the month of March. Start fresh, be positive, and just go at it. But welcome one and all to another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. I am Sabrina, and it's good to be back here, bringing you another live episode from a place I am honored to call home, beautiful Cayman Islands. Yes, where, at the end of the day, we love where we call home in comparison to what's happening around the world. Oh my gosh, this weekend has been pretty much the world is on edge, but I'm just so happy to call Cayman home. And today there's going to be no different, as I gave you my promise on Friday that, this space is, for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, this is a place where we take the headlines, we take even immigration bills as a whole for laws, and the policies and even the pressures that is shaping our islands. And it is my aim on this space to break them down in plain language with honesty, clarity, and definitely with heart. And of course, with your participation, your feedback, which is what and the reason why we have bills out for consultation. And we now know that Wednesday, the House is actually going to the Parliament is going to the fourth meeting for 2025-2026 session is slated for Wednesday the 4th at 2:00. And we know that there are going to be some important bills here that will be up for discussion. And, the timing couldn't be more tense because what we're seeing right now, we're dealing with cost of living crisis that is squeezing families from every angle, based on the conversations that we're hearing. We're watching a war in the East that is disrupting global shipping routes. Seeing we are now, and that's going to make it a part of the news headlines that's coming up, fuel prices as well. And the whole supply chains. And yes, that means the possibility of even higher prices yet again right here at home. And on top of that, big conversation, immigration continues to dominate our conversations across all three islands, from job security to housing to the pace of even population growth is still remaining on the top of people's conversations. So when Parliament meets this week, we know that there are going to be some bills that'll be coming forward. They're just not technical updates, to be honest with you. We have actually ventilated a lot of those here on this space already. They sit right at the intersection of every Caymanian, of what everything Caymanians are feeling right now. So today I'm hoping, and I'm keeping my promise to you, that we're going to break down and just, in layman's terms, tell you exactly what this health insurance amendment bill is. And I'll recap some of the highlights. And just before going live, I saw, and I'll share the link as well, where even our government is posting the amendments and encourage persons to read it. Again, they're pushing these stuff out because we saw where Section 77(2) of the Constitution has been enacted, where there's 28-day consultation now has been waived because it's a matter of urgency. But we will go through that. I gave you my word. We will go through what these amendments for the health insurance bill means, exactly what it means for you in accessing healthcare, free healthcare, who determines that. This is pretty big, and I'd like your opinion on it, but we'll go through that in layman's terms as well. So we want to break down the health insurance amendment bill, what that means with a big definition change, responsibilities as it pertains to the health minister, should this bill be passed as being proposed. And we'll highlight again some of the key things that the government wants you to know in regards to the immigration amendment bills as well. The phone lines will be open. And for those of you, 345-936-8255 is the number to either WhatsApp, be a part of the conversation live here today. We're coming live from beautiful Cayman Islands, and we'll be here until 7 p.m. But the content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and our participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. So I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented here. Like again, the number is 345-936-8255 to be a part of the conversation this evening and every evening, Monday through Friday from 5 until 7, where your voice matters because you're actually helping to chart the direction, because you speak and they definitely listen right here on Sabrina Speaks. Before we get into the headlines and definitely into today's discussion topic, let me share with you the latest weather update, compliments of our friends over there at the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. Now, the synopsis calls for moderate winds and seas that are expected as a ridge brings stable conditions across the Northwest Caribbean through Wednesday. Satellite imagery show patches of fair weather clouds over the Cayman area. Now, the forecast for tonight calls for fair skies with a 30% chance of early morning showers. Temperatures will fall to the mid-70s. Winds will be northeast, 10 to 15 knots with higher gusts after midnight. Seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. The forecast for tomorrow calls for partly cloudy skies with a 20% chance of showers. Temperatures will rise to the mid-80s and winds will be northeast, 10 to 15 knots with higher gusts. Seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. There will be a high tide this evening at 9:18 and tomorrow a low tide at 3:22, with another high tide tomorrow morning at 9:28. The sun will set this evening at 6:30 and will rise tomorrow morning at 6:44. Now, the outlook is calling for an increase in chance of thunderstorms from Thursday as an upper level trough moves across the Northwest Caribbean. And there you have it. That's our weather headlines for the weather report for this evening and definitely into tomorrow. It's good to make your plans. We got to know how to prepare for the weather. Now let's take a look at the headlines that are making news today. And oh my gosh, I would need 4 hours of a show to really catch up with everything that's going on. But we're going to cover it because no matter what, we're all connected some way, somehow. Starting with local news that are making the Sabrina Speaks episode today. A new set of proposed, and we're going to go into that, amendments to the Cayman Transition Act has definitely been released for public review, outlining several changes that could affect Caymanians, employers, investors, and work permit holders. Now, the updates includes a revised statutory definitions, changes to financial standing requirements, and new annual declaration requirements for certain immigration status holders. The proposal also introduces a series of administrative and procedural updates across wider immigration framework. Now, government officials say the amendments are intended to modernize the law and strengthen compliance, but public feedback is expected as the review process continues. And we will be going in a little bit into this. This was just released pretty much minutes before I went live today. Hence, it made the headlines, but we will go back to that. Police are also investigating 2 more armed robberies in Georgetown over the weekend, according to Cayman News Service. The first incident happened early Saturday morning at the Subway restaurant on Shedden Road, where a masked man wearing a hoodie entered the shop around 5:45 a.m., pointed a gun and demanded cash before escaping towards Eastern Avenue with an undisclosed amount of money. A second robbery took place on Sunday at a convenience store on Mary Street, carried out by a similar masked and armed suspect. Now, police have not confirmed whether the 2 robberies are connected. No shots were fired and no injuries were reported in either incident, but the gunmen in both cases escaped with cash. In other local news, Cayman is also gearing up to host the 2026 ICC Men's T20 World Cup America's Sub-Regional Qualifier Group B, taking place from March 8th to March 15th at the Jimmy Powell Oval in West Bay. Now, the tournament brings international teams from Antigua, Mexico, and Suriname, all competing in a double round-robin format with 12 matches scheduled across the week. Cayman will compete as both host and top seed, with the winner advancing to the Americas Regional Final. Now, the next step towards qualifying for the 2028 ICC Men's T20 World Cup will be up next. Turning our attention into the Caribbean. The Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum is warning that severe weather could begin as early as April, driven by unusually warm waters in the tropical North Atlantic. According to the latest regional climate outlook, areas at high risk include southern Belize, the Greater Antilles, and the mountainous region of the Lesser Antilles, with agencies saying unusual warmth increases the potential for flooding, flash floods, and cascading hazards as the region transitions from the cool season into the heat season. Also in Caribbean news, CARICOM nations are expressing growing concern over the escalating conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran. Regional leaders warned that the widening war could have serious humanitarian consequences and may also impact Caribbean through rising fuel prices, shipping disruptions, and economic instability. The statement comes as missile strikes and military operations intensify across the Middle East, prompting global calls for de-escalation. Now, the new United Nations report shows that hunger has also declined across Latin America and the Caribbean for the 4th consecutive years, with 6.2 million fewer people undernourished compared to 2020. The report highlights steady improvements in food access through its warns that the cost of a healthy diet remains high, especially for low-income households. Despite progress, the United Nations says continued investments is needed to protect vulnerable populations from economic shocks and climate-related disruption. Taking attention over now to Dubai, where international airports experienced a major disruption after smoke-filled parts of the terminal during Iran's retaliatory strikes of Gulf travel hubs. Now, passengers were evacuated as explosions and missile interceptions were reported across the region. And in other international concern is growing after a deadly insurgent attack on South Sudan, leaving 169 people dead in a remote village. Now, the assault is one of the deadliest in recent years and comes amid ongoing instability and inhumanitarian challenges in the region. Now, global leaders are calling for urgent intervention to prevent further violence and protect vulnerable communities. That concludes the headlines making Sabrina Speaks podcast here for today. So you can tell there's lots going on. There's lots more that I didn't even cover because it's just been that amount. We would literally need a show just to highlight headlines and dissect them one at one, but we got to keep you connected because there is a lot that's going on around us. Good evening to everyone. Welcome, welcome. Happy birthday to all of those who celebrated birthdays over the weekends, anniversaries, or just celebrating life and it's on its whole in whole. And also for those where today may be your special day, happy birthday to you from all of us here on Sabrina Speaks. It's good to be here with you. Hey, Damien. Yes, happy first Monday. Yes, it's good to have you here. Thank you for always being early and the first one today to comment. Andrew is also here. Blessed Monday to you as well. Miss Dorothy's in the house. Robert Ebanks is here as well. Yvette, how are you, my dear? Hello, my friend. Thank you so, so much. It's been a minute. It's been a while. Don't hate me. Just taking it one day at a time, my sweet. Love you lots. Don't you ever doubt that. Denver is also in the house. I hope it means making all healthcare facilities accept Cynico. Their bias is unacceptable. Comments are coming in. We'll hear more about that, and we welcome your feedback as usual. Denver, definitely there. Dragon Master, hi. It's good to have you here. And hello from the UK. Yeah, we got a crew over there as well checking in. It's good to have you join us. Good. Yes. It is a Monday here in the beautiful Cayman Islands. And just a gentle reminder. Hey, Marshall, you're late to class. What happened? Snow got you locked in? Good to have you here as well. Donnie's also in the house today. How are you? Good. Public service announcement, gentle reminder, shameless plug for an unsolicited as well. Just a gentle reminder that the People Progressive Movement is kicking off their listening tour. That's going to start tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. until 8 at the Constitutional Hall, where you can voice your concerns and share your feedback for the love of country. And they're hoping that this receives a good showing tomorrow. So don't forget it. That's tomorrow at the Town Hall in Georgetown next to the Parliament building. It's now officially called the Constitutional Hall. That takes place tomorrow. And definitely as a gentle reminder, again, Parliament convenes for the fourth meeting of 2025-2026 on Wednesday the 4th. So you can also get that live from 2 p.m. on CIG TV, their YouTube channels, and definitely on CIG TV cable, where we will also be tuning in and breaking it down for you. Well, we know that one of the bills that will definitely be up for discussion, and again, you can weigh in, you can call in. I'd like to get your opinion on this. Denver, you definitely have been going through some stuff, and based on some of the amendments and the definition that is changed under this particular bill, will actually put a lot more responsibilities right now on the Minister of Health. And, I always enjoy your feedback and I want to hear from you. So just let's get into it. I will be sharing with you what this bill looks like. I can also share the link with you if you want, but it's a very small piece of paper, a document, not as in depth as immigration, but it has a strong punch if you know exactly what that amendment means. And of course, the responsibility now shifting, no longer a particular department, but actually more responsibilities are going to be borne on the Minister of Health. And I've heard some people questioning it, but you know what? Before we get ahead of it, let me tell you what is being proposed, okay, as we do here in layman's terms. So the Health Insurance Amendment Bill of 2026, right? This bill proposes something that looks small on paper, but as I said, it will carry some huge meanings. And what it is actually doing is that it is removing the term indigent person from the law and replaces it with the term medical indigent person. Okay, so that is what this is doing. And that is the page that I have up on the screen is just letting you know exactly what this bill is intended to actually do. A bill for an act to amend the Health Insurance Act 2021 revision to delete the definition of the words indigent person, to introduce a definition for the words medical indigent person, to delete references to indigent person and references describing persons as indigent and substitute the references to medically indigent person, to provide for transition arrangements and for incidental and connected purposes. So this is the first part of this bill, but the definition in itself, and it has it here for you, is that indigent is outdated based on what is being put forward. It is outdated, and the word in itself labels persons as poor or destitute. But many Caymanians and hardworking Caymanians may not be poor, but still cannot afford medical care that they may need in their later years or otherwise. And what this amendment is aiming to do is that it shifts the focus from person to the medical situation. So under the old law, you were deemed as indigent. Now, this is creating a category that says you're medically indigent for medical situation. And what this bill is also doing, it also updates every section of the piece of law where the old term appears and includes the transitional arrangements as well, so that no one loses coverage during the changeover. And you may say, why does matter, right? It's about dignity. It's about accuracy. And there is some compassion here as well. It is also about ensuring that when someone actually needs help with medical costs, whether it's cancer treatment, dialysis, long-term medications, or an emergency, this particular bill reflects their medical need and not label of poverty. You get it? So this kind of update that says something about who we are as a people at the end of the day. Now, whether or not you feel it's sustainable, because you're seeing where the health costs are continuing to escalate, that's one part of it. But the mere fact that this actually creates the definition for tapping into government services is a total different scenario, because you may have enough funds at your disposal where you're able to buy food, pay your utilities, you may have a little mortgage and all that sort of stuff still on your property, but your long-term medical medications, that sort of stuff, will actually make you become totally dependent on the service. And this is why the removal of indigent person that will no longer label persons as indigent, and for years has been stigmatizing people. And with this new terminology now that they're being introduced, it is someone who just cannot afford medical insurance or medical care based on whether they are already receiving financial assistance or, listen to this, the Minister of Health decisions after advice from the Chief Medical Officer. So you understood what I said at the beginning, because now the minister that changes on every election cycle has this as a part of their responsibility. So it's also a shift in decision-making authority as well, because under the old law, decisions were made through social services. They have that DAF, I stand to be corrected, but it was always two different departments. And under the amendment now, the minister becomes the final decision maker. But that decision is not guided upon only by the minister. It's guided by the Chief Medical Officer, okay? And also, what this is doing with the transitional provisions is that anyone who has a pending application will be assessed under, wow, this is new, under the new rules. Yeah. So you see where the transitional under immigration, because it's two separate pieces of law. And under this one, if your application right now is pending and you're not seeking assistance with the mortgage, utilities, food, that sort of stuff, because your income or your savings has enough that can sustain you, but you want to be deemed medically indigent because the cost of medical insurance is so high that you actually need the help, or it's going to run you so bankrupt that you will have no other choice but to 100% be dependent on the government. Okay? You may be okay right now to take care of every other bill, but what is bringing you into this whole being broke, not being able to live with dignity, is the cost, let's say, of your health insurance and long-term life-saving medications. Okay? So what it does is this is actually modernizing the language used in the legislation, because the shift from indigent to medical indigent will focus, like I said earlier on the medical needs and not general poverty. This doesn't mean that you may not be sick, medically sick, that you will not be able to still access services. But what they're doing is making it clear so that you can access service without being or going broke or using your last dime or having to divest everything that you own and then 100% be borne on the government. They are making this term medically indigent to just deal with the medical side of things. And in doing this, the Minister of Health becomes the person who signs off on who qualifies for government-funded medical care now. Before, persons who got cynical permanent insurance were actually dealt with or put on a list. Put on a list, no oversight at all from the Ministry of Health or minister getting on this list. But the Ministry of Health was responsible for paying the bill to cynical. Now, what this is doing is that the decision now will be made in the Ministry of Health, okay? And the minister must act. This decision ties medical expertise that is already in-house within the ministry that was dealing with another department in the first place. And the minister, in making that joint decision, will act on the advice of the chief medical officer, which adds a clinical, evidence-based layer to the entire process. Not to say that it wasn't there before, but it was in a total separate department. And then the minister was responsible for going on the floor of Parliament, justifying a budget to pay bills, and they had no oversight really of how the process works, and the minister then was not making the decision. So it clarifies who qualifies. People receiving financial assistance automatically, that falls under the definition, and others can qualify if the minister and the CMO determine that they cannot afford the care. Now you get that? So what do you feel about this? 943-1186. Your feedback is welcome. That's why the bill is out. Remember now, this is going to Parliament on Wednesday. If you agree with this, call in, comment on whatever social media platform that you're actually streaming us live on, and give us your opinions. They want your feedback, okay? And these are public sentiments, that at the end of the day, some people are saying, they're great that they're actually modernizing it, but some of the concerns that have been voiced with little time given is that some worry about one political office having the authority to decide who gets free medical care. Yeah. Some actually said as well, how do I know it's going to be fair if I'm not with this party and that government gets in and da-da-da-da-da, and consistency, and transparency as well came up a little bit. And I'm like, oh no, I hope that will never be politicized with the power of the law that is given the responsibility in collaboration with the CMO. I'm hoping that we never, ever get there. And what I'm going at is political influences, because some have concerns that it may actually be a case where they express concern about whether decisions can be influenced by politics rather than need. And what if it is on the other spectrum? Good evening, caller. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. Welcome to the show.
You are my second favorite topic, health insurance.
Well, now the powers are shifting and responsibilities are more to the minister.
Yes. I firstly want to say I appreciate the update to the name.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I know persons who are on that medical insurance, and I don't think that they were offended by the word indigent.
Mm-hmm.
I think they took it for exactly what it was intended to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, indigent in the real sense of the word is a person who can't afford basic living, just to live,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm going to be honest with the cost of health care. If you had to pay that out of pocket, we would all be considered indigent, or most of us.
Yeah.
Right? But I wanted to further elaborate on, I guess, to just raise the question, right? And so with them adding the terminology in there and using what you said, that the determination will be made by the CMO, people are not typically unable to afford or unable to get access to good health care or good health insurance, I should say, not typically because, not only in cases of affordability. Private insurances do not allow you to access a tier program that is much higher than a SHIC plus.
Mm-hmm.
We already know what the SHIC plan is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no allowance for you if you are not with a company. There's no allowance for you to move up a tier in a plan. So it leaves you very uncovered, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
And moving up to that tier of package in itself can
Mm-hmm.
be very cost prohibitive. I spoke to a friend today who has a family plan with one of these private insurances, and she said that her family plan, that's herself, her husband, and 2 kids,
Mm-hmm.
is $2,600.
Oh, wow.
In taking what you said, and please correct me if I'm not understanding, in taking what you said, I'm going to tell you right now, at those costs, a lot of us are medically indigent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that's the intention of the minister. However, I understand with putting the remit back to the minister to have a final go. I'm a little bit confused about the CMO. Because
the CMO always weighed in. What they're
Agreed.
doing now is that they're moving where Ms. Paulinda Mendoza, her department, social services, right?
Mm-hmm.
They used to be the ones, because DAF
Understood.
fall under them. They used to
Correct.
be the one do the vetting process for someone who makes an
Correct.
application to say, I need to access government service. I don't have health insurance. And they would then do the assessment within that department and then run you through the HSA. And then they decide whether or not you get the indigent insurance, right? Many a times that bill, many a times how the old structure was set up is that they put it on, and the Minister of Health, responsible for paying Syndico, had no clue who was being put on.
Yeah, but that's a fault of the government. That shouldn't fall to the person requiring that service, right?
Agreed. But at the end of the day, now they're saying this could be better done for permanent indigent declaration, that we know what the bill is about. If it is housed, the decision making, that is housed in the Ministry of Health. The
Yes and
question
no.
is
Yes and no. My
politicizing
concern
it.
is, well, this is it. This is my concern. And let me be clear, I am not speaking about the current minister,
Yeah.
past minister,
Yes.
just in general.
Yeah.
My concern is, what if the next health minister, or the current health minister, what if she don't like you? What I'm saying is, if we take if we take what you just said, medically indigent. Medically means there's a medical need. Indigent meaning cannot afford. Medically cannot afford health insurance. We're changing the terminology because that person cannot afford health insurance, right? You gave an example earlier whereby saying, I do get a small pension, I don't have a mortgage, and I'm able to afford my basic needs. However, health insurance is just a little bit out of my reach.
Or the medication that you need for the rest of your life to keep your heart
Correct.
ticking, to keep your kidney from rejection.
Correct.
Or your high blood pressure, your diabetes medication that you'd be on for the rest of your life.
Absolutely, but what I'm saying is, in understanding what you're saying, and I'm going to use an older person as an example.
Yes.
Right? An individual who has retired. We all know that no private company, not even the government, is obligated to keep you on a health insurance plan. Okay? And if you, God bless your stars, if you are fortunate enough to work with a private company who agrees to keep your health insurance active post-retirement, you are responsible for the premium. And there's no longer even a responsibility whereby they have to cover half of that premium. In effect, they're giving you a little blight, a little hand up, like allowing you to remain on their health plan, because that's not a requirement, right? My concern is that in using this medically indigent people, so we know we have this pre-existing conditions where they are not allowed to discriminate. No, they're not allowed to discriminate. However, they're allowed to limit what, if you, assuming you private.
Hello, caller. I think we just lost that caller there. Hello. I think she put herself on hold. Let me call her back. Yeah, she was on a roll there. But yeah, you don't have to speak openly on the thing. You can privately WhatsApp me, and that's but you've already identified. I wouldn't identify you though. 345-936-8255. We're accepting WhatsApp.
Hello?
I don't know what happened. I think you muted yourself.
Oh Jesus, sorry. But I'm not sure where I cut off. But like, just in speaking about just a pre-existing condition, right? If you're able to afford private health insurance post-retirement, or even working on your own, it is impossible to get, if you are self-employed, to get a decent healthcare plan, right? Again, speaking about pre-existing conditions, I'm asthmatic.
Yeah.
My coverage for that is limited to $15,000 a year. Obviously, not in cases of emergencies, but outpatient treatment. So if I have to pop in to get nebulized, if I just am not feeling well, those aren't always treated as acute cases, because I may only need to see a doctor to get a breathing treatment. I'm limited with that treatment. To $15,000 per year. And again, I just want to stress, my concern is that this could become politicized. People could use it as a political weapon, if you will. And the law states that every person residing in this Cayman Island must, not should, not will, must have health insurance. We don't only have adults who are uninsured, we also have a ton of kids who are uninsured, right? And the issue particularly that I take with children being uninsured is they don't have access to proper dental care. By the time they do, and it ends up being a severe case, so the law requires that if you are working, you must cover your dependents. That's not happening. That's not always happening, right? And it's very difficult to police. Is it right? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it's difficult when you're looking at somebody and telling them you're going to take a third of their salary for health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
They don't disclose to you that they even have children because they can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
They simply can't afford it. So is that person considered medically indigent? I mean, just think about the example I gave earlier. Let's just assume that person is making $5,000 a month. I just highlighted to you that a family plan is $2,600. That is more than 50% of that person's salary, right? Is that person considered medically indigent?
Where you see the regulations now that will go on that will actually have maybe, I don't know. I'm not speaking on behalf of the minister. I'm not speaking on behalf of the cabinet, but I'm just trying to put it into context now. Remember, this is the law. This is a bill. And with this comes the regulations. We do not know what will be the measuring stick outcome, or what would be that determining factor, because as I have here on the screen, subsection B, in the opinion of the minister responsible for health, acting on the advice of the chief medical officer, is unable to pay for the person's health insurance or medical services by reasons of inadequate financial resources. Is there a limit? Is there a cap? Is this... Yeah. So we need to know the regulation, the operational arm of what this is, because save by an explanation being given on the floor by the minister who this bill will fall under on Wednesday, Thursday, whenever the bill is being tabled to open up for debate. We do not know that right now. And then it has to get the blessings. And this is where public feedback is key, but it's also limiting. It's contracted because this feedback consultation was deemed as a matter of urgency without enough clarity. And I stand to be corrected. What is the measuring stick? I understand the importance of the term medical indigent, but the responsibility now also being borne on the Minister of Health, and your concerns are sound because it was said to me by a number of persons, oh my God, that has just become politicized. If the wrong minister gets there and they don't like me.
Forget about, well, you know, the thing that I am most concerned about is the opposite happening, okay? Is the opposite happening. Because what I don't want to see is a case where Sabrina and all of her constituency is now medically indigent. That's also what I don't want to see.
What a Pandora box.
That's what I don't want to see. What I also would not like to see is persons who are in genuine need of it, but because they didn't support Sabrina and we know that they didn't vote for Sabrina, or forget about that because that is petty and has no place.
Yeah.
No place in something like this. But God forbid Sabrina has the audacity to have some, a little bit of income above her pension. Let's say she has a little apartment or she's renting a room and she's getting $500 a month, including her pension. Let's just say she has a grand total
lights
of...
on, that's keeping food on my table, because that's not the help that I need.
Let's just say she just happens to bring in $2,000 a month and, you know, she's making ends meet. However, Sabrina is diabetic, possibly hypertensive, possibly asthmatic.
Yeah.
Like all of those things that come, you know. God forbid if she has a chronic disease, like a autoimmune disease, right? Like these are the things. And what I'm saying is, how do you, like, what is the definition of medically indigent? What is going to be the, as you say, the measuring stick? How do you determine what is the qualifying criteria? And if it is at the discretion of the minister, how do I know it is not going to be abused negatively or positively? I.e., she don't like me, so she ain't giving me health insurance, or she like all of us, so we all getting it. This medically indigent.
Okay,
and
let me give you the definition. Medical indigent person means a person who, A, is a recipient as defined in Section 2.1 of the Financial Assistance Act, or B, as I read before, in the opinion of the minister responsible for health acting on the advice of the CMO, is unable to pay for the person's health insurance medical service by reason of inadequate financial resources.
Can I pause you right there?
Go ahead.
How is the CMO going to be able to determine if I have the financial capacity to afford health insurance? How does he get to determine that? Because he shouldn't have access to my financial information. Surely if I am applying for some sort of assistance at DFA, yes, I believe that there are quite a number of disclosures, including your financial position, that has to be made. But isn't that also, I would think it is a violation of my privacy? Because if we're required, again, taking it back to legislation, to have health insurance, and we cannot afford it, that is not saying I'm so sick that I need health insurance. This is a requirement under the law to have health insurance. Okay? It doesn't say, so the employment law is quite clear in who, as long as you're employed, who should be providing this health insurance. It doesn't speak, it barely speaks to the case of self-employed persons in respect to health insurance. Again, self-employed persons are only able to get SHIC. That is nothing, right? SHIC is the most basic tier of plan that you're allowed to get, and you can even get that if you work for a private company. I forgot where I was taking this, but again,
about the confidentiality and the CMO
but this is
making,
it. So how does he get? Because surely the CMO can only add a medical perspective.
Yeah,
he can only add a medical perspective, right? And what I'm saying is, again, I can use myself with an autoimmune disease, right? I think I sent you a photo of what that medication costs without health insurance. Okay, if I am on, let's just say I'm on the SHIC plan. I'm on the SHIC plan. SHIC don't cover that. It doesn't cover that. Okay, and if I were a person of means, surely I would have a top tier health insurance that would cover a little more. But all I can afford is SHIC. That medication is not covered by SHIC. It's an autoimmune disease. I'll be on this medication for life. Am I medically indigent? Like, how are we going to define this?
Well, this is
in the opinion of the CMO. Again, he can only speak to a medical perspective. I believe any disclosures other than a possible medical condition being disclosed to the CMO is a violation of privacy.
But for the case of accessing medical care, maybe the whole involvement of the CMO for this part was to give the public more confidence in the process of the decision making, but the actual payment, then again, I see where you're going with it, but without their rationale for how it came.
Let me make this argument once more, and I will leave you after this. But you have somebody who is in the private sector. Let's just say that person is in the private sector, and they earn $3,500 a month. And they have a deduction for health insurance. They're just one person. And maybe their employer cannot afford to pay. In most cases, I come across the employer is paying for a decent healthcare package for the full thing in a lot of cases. But let's just say that this employer cannot afford that. This person can only afford the SHIC plan. The employer is only responsible to cover half. That person has an autoimmune disease. To move up to a proper healthcare plan, it's going to cost them $1,000, because that's realistically what it is. It's going to cost them $1,000. So they went from having less than $100 deducted from their salary to having $500 deducted from their salary. And that's just so that they can cover the medication that's required for their autoimmune disease. Okay? Some may be relatively cheap to treat, but most autoimmune diseases aren't. I have it. I can tell you, right? And what I'm saying is, a person having a $500 deduction from their salary, they can probably vote. I don't think there are many people out there who are happy to pony up $1,000, $1,500, God forbid if they have a family, $2,000 a month for health insurance. It is a necessary evil. But when 1/3 of your salary goes to health insurance, that's kind of hard. Does it put us all in a medically indigent category?
But where does it stop?
I don't know.
I was in a conversation with another Caymanian, and one of the benefits, whether or not we see it more and more that it's appearing to not be sustainable for the future at the rate in which things are going, is that we were comparing the benefits of someone working in the civil service for an extended period of time, 10 years or more, and upon retirement, reach retirement age or deemed to be medical board, they get medical coverage for life. Okay.
And they're dependent.
Okay. Okay. But what happens to the Caymanians who have never worked in the government, reach retirement age? We know they are going to live on their pension until that ends. Then what?
But what
it's
I'm
not
saying
like
is,
their retirement package
they're,
may even include lifetime
I was-
benefits for medical insurance. Then
I
what?
was just about to say that again, focusing it for the purposes of this example on retired persons.
Yeah.
Right? We know what the law says about pension disbursement.
Yes.
You cannot get anything other than the SHIC plan if you do not have an employer. You cannot. I dare them to try to get it. You may be able to go through a broker. I've seen it done in some instances. However, in most instances, the best that they are willing to do for you is a SHIC plus.
Again.
Is a SHIC plus.
What is that?
Again, exactly. It barely we already know what the SHIC plan is. It should be called something else. But it is the most basic thing. It meets the requirement that the government has set out. So to me, that SHIC plan is more of a satisfaction for government to satisfy that requirement. And the only persons getting rich from the SHIC plan are insurance companies, because it's so limited in what it covers that it may as well not exist.
Wow.
It may as well not exist, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
It's more of an assurance than an insurance. Even the emergency episodes are very limited in what they cover in terms of the amount, right? And I think, and I stand corrected, there was a candidate speaking during the election that, we should have almost like a universal health care, a universal health care thing. And I'm sorry, I'm not an insurance expert. However, I am a reinsurance expert. And this current model is more of an American model. It doesn't work for us. This co-pay, it does not work. In order for that to work, and we see it, it's more in the U.S. and the way it's currently structured, we don't have the population to sustain it. We simply don't, right? Which is why premiums are so high. And to get decent coverage, you have to get the highest plan available. However, you have people who are on premium coverage and insurance business of risk, and you have people with SHIC who've never been to the doctor. You have people with premium who've never been to the doctor. It does not affect their premium. It does not. However, you may have somebody within your network who has cancer, who got pregnant, God forbid. Ooh, that one is expensive. Who gets pregnant? That could drastically change the premium
right.
for the entire group. And poor Siobhan over here is saying, I haven't even been to the doctor since I worked here for 3 years.
Right.
Why is my insurance going up?
Up.
Well, it's based on the whole, the totality
The pool. Mm-hmm.
of everything.
And
And
the
you
risk.
may have somebody, absolutely, and you may have somebody within that who is very ill.
Mm-hmm.
You may not know because
Mhm.
you should not be disclosing it, but it's based on that. Again, if they could clarify who is going to qualify, they've set it out there in legislation.
Well, I guess we'll
That
have to
is
wait until Wednesday until the bill is being
that is
tabled.
quite clear.
But
But
do
what
you?
I'm saying is, if you have someone going down to request NAU, if you have someone requesting NAU, financial assistance or whatever the case is, chances are that person does not have health insurance.
Insurance. Mm-hmm.
They do not. That should be a given.
And then
That person
you will have a
should.
sector of Cayman who is at a point in their life where they can go into their retirement with dignity, have enough resources at their disposal that they can keep up their maintenance of their home, food, utilities, and all that sort of
Correct.
stuff, but they cannot afford health insurance.
Only time that you become aware of the fact that that person is medically indigent is during an emergency. When they show up at the hospital, need to have their chest cracked open because they're having a heart attack, and people are scrambling, and either they have loved ones who are diligent enough to actually get emergency cynical. I've done that a number of times. It's very difficult, and it shouldn't have to be that way. It shouldn't have to be that way. Or that person ends up with a massive bill.
Yeah.
A massive bill, right? And I don't have the answer. I wish I did, but I think we really, really need to do a much better job around health insurance in general. In general, there are preventative care is key. Preventative care is
and this
key.
is why public health is so key in getting these people before instead of actually getting them at end stage.
Absolutely.
Or critical.
Preventative care is key. The preventative coverage on health insurance is either, if you got shit, you ain't got nothing. But if you on a decent plan, it's still very limited. It's still very limited. And again, these are all things, again, preventative care that you could catch it early, you could get something done about it. But if they don't have if they don't even have the health insurance that even allows them a visit, if they're on the shit plan, dog eat their supper.
Yeah.
Dog eat their supper, honestly.
I would like to get public's feedback as well. What safeguards people would actually like to see then to ensure that fairness and there is transparency and that they wouldn't be politicized. What would satisfy the public to say that these things are being put into place, that you will not be looked at differently because you're one party, or you didn't vote my thing, or this one is a staunch this party, that one is a staunch that party.
Let's not even take that aspect of it, because I would like to think that the persons that we are putting in public office are not that
and more mature.
Not that petty. I am going to give them that amount of grace today, and I hope they prove me right. Not even that. It at least I'm going to say it's not even that. That's always a possibility. That's always a possibility, right? But the greater possibility is, again, how it is going to be determined. Because what I'm saying is, Sabrina, she lives in a house, she got a nice car, but Sabrina's deemed to be medically indigent, right? And I'm looking on and saying, well, how she gets cynical? I'm worse off than her. You understand? And so I appreciate all of the mechanisms that this new bill is trying to add. And I do believe it's all in an effort to be very transparent, to give more braces belts and braces around it, so that people are not just over there willy-nilly signing up Tom, Dick, and Harry for it. I get that. But Are we being too bureaucratic with it? Are we being too limited? Because what I'm saying is, I gave you the example multiple times. Somebody is earning a limited amount of money,
I got you.
has a autoimmune disease. One of my medications is $1,956. That's one. I take two. Right? Without health insurance, that's out of pocket because that ain't covered by shit. That ain't covered by shit. Right? That is the reality. But I can't beat this soapbox anymore.
We just have to wait and see. And I'm hoping that on Wednesday or whenever this bill will be tabled on the floor of Parliament by the minister, that the notes provided and the rationale, the justification for this would actually cover some of the concerns that are being pointed out and are actually being spoken about. Go ahead. Sorry.
But again, not just the rationale. Nobody knows what the next man have in his head. You can cut his head open, but you never know what's in there, right?
All laws start with good intentions until.
But the road to hell is also paved with good intentions.
Yes.
Okay? And we don't want to get down there. Okay? Not with health insurance and health in general.
Right.
But I just want us to not forget, and I don't mean to be nasty, I mean to be practical. Right? Let's not forget where we are with this immigration bill.
I'm going to tackle that as well, just as a recap.
Measure twice.
Measure
twice. Cut one. Measure twice. Cut one. And take your time. I see what you're trying to do. And this is one time that I have truly not had the opportunity to think it through, talk it through, or to even say to someone else, hey, you're an expert here. What's your opinion? Right? This is just me as a consumer saying, these are the things that don't work.
Yeah.
Here are the concerns that I think about as the average person, as the average user. And things that I think that they should all consider, because you were just talking about this is what it says or whatever, right? What the bill says and what you intend can be miles apart. Can be miles apart. And then you have to come back and make other amendments. People are now going to be vigilant. People are now going to be more vigilant, complaining and just boo-hooing and saying, why the hell you didn't get it done right in the first time? Why didn't you get it done right the first time? And laws are meant to be evolutionary.
Yeah.
They're meant
They're
to
not
be
static.
fluid.
They're not static.
Correct. They're meant to be fluid, right? But what I'm saying is, I think when that happens, that you're constantly changing, people start to lose confidence.
Yeah. And
people start to lose confidence. And not only do they start to lose confidence, I start to question your intelligence. I start to question your integrity, because I personally think that immigration bill was ramshackled and pushed through. I think more consultation should have been done on it. I'm not suggesting that we did not need reform, let me be clear, but it was just it just felt like it was just rushed through, and now look at the mess, look at where we are. And then you're hearing, well, this is what was intended, this is what I meant it to say, or I don't know how to interpret it, but I have technocrats do it. You know why they call them lay people? Lay people mean ordinary people, regular folks. Those are the people who that law is going to affect. Those people ought to be able to understand in its basic sense and the basic form what the law says. We have a Department of Labor and Pensions, and if you have a labor query, you can go down there and get clarification. You have nowhere to go if you need clarification on the immigration law. You have nowhere to go if you need clarification on the health insurance law, or Health Insurance Act, Health Care Act. You have nowhere to go to get clarification on it. And
of course, pick up the phone and call the minister or your representative. Of course.
I'm going to hang up now.
I will not take it as an insult. No, I'm giving you food for thought.
But that's not their job. That's not their job.
The minister has a constitutional responsibility that if they're tabling a bill, they should be responsible for actually being able to, because they pass on the direction of cabinet, which in reflection reflects the entire government. And for
I
just
agree.
clear disclosure, for the purpose of this, even though what we're talking about, immigration and health insurance,
Mhm.
the cabinet consists of 8 individuals.
I agree.
None of these ministers are tabling any of these bills in their own right. It all is approved and assented and supported by the entire government side, and definitely it do not make it on the floor of Parliament unless it gets the blessing, wholehearted, hand over heart support from cabinet. The process
I
in which
agree with
this
you, but
takes.
let's hold on.
Go ahead.
Let's not be so ignorant. That is in theory.
Mm-hmm.
And collective responsibility is the rule of the day,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's what they signed up for. So I don't want to hear, well, I didn't vote for that. That's what they signed up for. And I think that they all understand that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, measure twice, cut one.
I get you.
Cut one.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave you here because I'm getting a little hot and bothered by all of these change.
Let's call it a hot
They're
flash.
They're just waking up. They're just waking up and realizing, you know what? I want people to feel better about getting free health insurance. What?
But is it sustainable
missing
for a
the mark.
tax-free country? We don't pay
They
into
are
health insurance
missing
general.
the mark.
Exactly.
Ho-
There's not a
Hold
free
on,
lunch.
hold on. Start telling civil servants that they're going to have to contribute to their health insurance and see how quickly things change.
As long as
See
they
how
get
quickly-
choice. Some actually say
yeah,
as long
yeah.
as they have choice.
But they can get that.
But what I'm saying is, I think
There's
the
private
conversation,
insurance out there.
not,
But again, we go back to the argument about universal health care.
yeah,
Everybody have access to the same thing, to the same exact thing. Because I can tell you, I assure you, there are persons out there who have private health insurance, who cannot afford private health insurance, who would happily change places with somebody on cynical today, who would happily
something better than
change
nothing.
places
Mm-hmm.
with somebody on cynical today.
Yeah.
Because that's just where we are, Sabrina.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if I haven't been clear, I don't think the problem is health insurance. It's access to proper health insurance
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and proper coverage.
Well,
and
it'll be
that
interesting.
has to be addressed. But
It'll be
anyway.
interesting to see if the largest employer in this jurisdiction, being that the government civil service, if they would be inclined, as all civil servants, to pay towards health insurance and what that would look like.
Well, I have heard that conversation by a lot of civil servants who said, I will pay for it. It's just not going to be
Exactly,
cynical.
which is what I'm echoing.
But
of
you're
what I heard
happy.
a lot
Yeah,
of
but
them
you're
say.
happy. You're happy with cynical and you're happy with the product. And it's okay as long as you don't have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Then don't eat the steak.
Well, this is a wider conversation that nationally we have to have, and this is why it's important for us to have these feedbacks. Looking at just one definition, it may seem minute, but do you realize the power in that simple change?
Well, that's not it. And I'm going to promise you I'm going to leave you after this. That's not a simple change. We have shifted direction on this. We've added what on the surface, and I'm going to give them some grace and say this is what I think their intentions are. That again, giving them a little bit of grace. Their intention is to create. Maybe it's to expedite it. Maybe it's to create more safeguards.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's for faster approvals. I'm going to give them all of the good benefits of the doubt, right? Notwithstanding that I recognize that it can go left quick.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it doesn't, and I wish them the best, but I do wish that they take a lot of consultation on it. Measure twice, cut once. That's me. I'm out.
Consultation has been contracted, ma'am. It's been waived. Section 77(2). Thank you, caller, for that. And the phone lines are now open. Let me read some of the comments. I got a WhatsApp here. Briefly, 1 out of every 3 working citizens work for the government. Of those remaining, 1/3 of them make really good money. The other 1/3, I suspect, suffer. The island is number 1 in the world for hedge funds, number 8 in the world for Bitcoin. I'll just take an educated guess. None of those people care what the insurance policy is. They don't care about the working class, the backbone of this island that affords them the lifestyle they enjoy. What's your take on that? The phone lines are now open, 936-8255. Let me read some more comments here before we go and we highlight again for a brief recap from the immigration amendments and what that is actually, but we're doing it in a consolidated version today. Andrew says, most of the elderly pensions cannot cover medical needs, food, and utilities. Denver also says that he's agreeing with the first caller, but his belief is that NAU, DFA, are not doing their due diligence, as many are collecting money that doesn't really need it and still working, collecting a decent salary. Again, weigh in on it. We want to hear from you. More feedback is the key. 345-936-8255. You can send me a WhatsApp. You can call in on WhatsApp as well, or call me direct. Denver says he is also feeling the pain, and he also diagnosed with AIU finally after 7 years, and I'm 95%. That's an autoimmune disease, and he's now 95% clear. Andrew is also weighing in, and he says health insurance is a very high-risk problem because underwriters have to look at the health statistics of a pool of, let's say, 100 people, for example. And if 10 are extremely sick with severe conditions, the risk rate is going to be very high. They have to analyze a rate to cover the risk. Immigration bill has to be careful, as we easily can put ourselves into huge liability. Thank you for that comment, Andrew. Yes, Heaven Bless says, immigration working for insurance companies. Oh, Denver is just making a thing. It's Siobhan saying that she must be a good carpenter. And Jim was questioning free medical insurance. Jim, yes. We are many manners. Where are my manners? Oh, yes. Yes, Jimbo. Yeah. Connie said hi to you as well. Real Michelle, welcome. How are you? Good to have you on the show and with us live today. But there we have it. That's pretty much it in a nutshell, but it's a big thing to be talking about, to be honest with you, in regards to this amendment. And I thank the caller for calling in, weighing it. It definitely got us food for thought. I'm bringing it to you as the bill is presented, letting you know what it means. The scenarios are real. And what has been sparking a lot of the conversation is that decision-making now being politicized. And like the caller says, good graces that we will never have any elected member of parliament that would actually be vindictive enough that they would, and be so petty, I quote and paraphrase, that this would become an issue in the future if, let's say, this decision-making process actually take a turn and is passed on the floor of parliament as presented, giving the Minister of Health more responsibilities and a deciding factor as to you getting medical coverage and being deemed to assist with medical insurance and access free medical care. So there you have it. But if you want to weigh in on it, please, by all means. I enjoy when you call, and that number is 345-936-8255. Now, let's just look at what the government has released in regards to these proposed changes, which we have went in detail for a number of days on the Immigration Transition Amendment Act. And these change, as we stated before, it has some new definitions. What we're seeing coming out now of the amendments. Oh, this is a new one that is coming out. Sorry, I'm getting the two mixed up. Oh my God, Siobhan, now you understand why there's so much. It says there is now a proposed amendments to the Immigration Transition Act of 2022, right? And this transition now again comes with new definitions, update financial requirements, and annual declarations for certain status and administrative cleanups. Now, this was more than likely that bill that was passed in the House on the floor of Parliament in 2025. And the whole goal appears to be modernizing the law and tightening compliance while clarifying who qualifies for what. But with everything going on right now, with all these amendments to amend another amendment, and you can understand why things can get lost in the mix. And it's even becoming a little challenging, even as I prepare here to come to you in layman's terms, keeping up with which one. Many a times I have like 8 different tabs open, trying to make sense of it all. So please do not beat yourself up if you get lost into some of what is being proposed. We're seeing contracted times, meaning shortened times for discussion. We are trying to keep up with it here to you, to bring you the latest updates, letting you know exactly what's coming down the pipeline, and bringing it so that at least nothing hits you by surprise, okay? And some of these modernizing that hit the government's channels in regards to this proposed amendments to the transition is we're seeing where Caymanians are getting concerns, because we realize that immigration in itself impacts jobs. It affects housing costs. It affects living and long-term, even population growth. Now, that in itself, my friends, I really want to hear exactly the true regulation side of all of those persons born here on the 26th of March, 1977 and earlier, exactly how far those benefits will extend. I know that we have lawyers that are looking into it. We have constitutional responsibilities as well. You have right to family life and all that sort of stuff. Correcting a wrong, trying to make it right, but there are implications that could actually give us a different effect when it comes to population growth, if it is not well thought of and fringing on people's rights, so to human rights, pretty much, right? And any changes to definitions or even financial requirements can shift who really qualifies for resident status or even the continuation and renewal of their work permits. Remember, if you have gotten a child or a spouse, a partner, as a dependent on your work permit, and the threshold now increases for what your salary should be to have a dependent. Let's use this number for an example. Let's say when you applied for immigration to include a child or a spouse, your income only had to be $3,500, just for example purposes. But now, with these amendments, they're saying your salary, just for good measure, has to be $5,000. And this is a renewal or an application on a whole. Do you realize that there could be questions as to whether or not your employer now may actually have to sit down and talk to you about increasing your salary, because your originally agreed, not expecting these types of amendments, was agreed at a certain threshold point that you were able to work, get a salary, and include a child or children. But now that has been increased. Who you think is going to bear that? You're going to, as an employer, you're either going to have to increase the worker's salary to be able for you to maintain their working with you so that they can have their child or spouse. So if you think it's not going to impact everybody, think again. Hence, I liked what was posted on the government's channel, and I quote, "A set of proposed amendments has been published for review. These include the new and revised statutory definitions, adjustments to financial standing requirements, annual declaration requirements for certain status holders, administrative and procedural updates across the immigration framework, and these proposal amendments may affect Caymanians, employers, investors, and work permit holders. Let that sink in. You can't say you're not warned. Good evening, caller. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind?
Good evening, Sabrina. I'm looking at you on the screen today. For some reason, you look like 7 to 10 years younger. I don't know if it is the way you're dressed, for some reason.
Slay Beauty Bar, Petula and Carol. They keep me looking younger. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. It hit me very quickly. Now, I would have wanted to say something about the new immigration health insurance thing.
Yeah.
And I think I'm halfway toward being able to say that. But then some of what you discussed with your previous column has made me feel, no, let me double check one or two little things so that I can give a more rounded talk on that. But I thought I should pick up a little bit of what we talked about last week together with the last caller. I don't mean to really to get everything.
Yeah.
It's because she has, from what she said, she has now driven me in a certain corner where I want to more than just say that I respect her argument, but there's an extent to which I think the argument has to be validated. You remember we spoke about how, I said it is rather unfair for somebody who has got PR, doesn't have a job, is living a stable life and all those things, and then because they can't pay their PR fees, then you revoke their PR. And I remember her asking the question, it's unfair, but unfair to whom? Because, and that was really the question which had me thinking after, the show ended. Because basically she was saying, look, maybe you might think it is unfair, but how do the Caymanians who have got a birthright in the country, who feel that their turf is narrowing, they can't get jobs for their kids, for their grandkids, and the government is not doing enough to protect them, how do you compare that unfairness to the unfairness that you say exists when somebody who has a birthright in another country loses their PR in Cayman? And I thought that was a very profound issue, because if you look at that issue in isolation, the one about losing PR because you don't have a job and then you can't pay your fees, it is a much less injustice. It really pales by far in comparison to people who are call them the owners of Cayman, finding that they are now strangers in their own land. They can't get a job easily, and quite frankly, successive governments crushed them. And I think that when you look at it that way, then I found myself understanding why Caymanians feel strongly about that. I think that if, for example, Caymanians had been, say, about maybe 70 or 80% of the population in the country, and if they were feeling that, you see, they are given priority in terms of work and business and all those things, I think Caymanians would not have cared too much about some reasonable law which says, okay, if you can't get a job, you won't lose your PR because you haven't paid fees. We are going to give you a year. I think that a lot of Caymanians would have been able to just say, okay, we can let that go, if they themselves felt that they were being treated fairly.
Sir, I don't think you get that lesson today. I could be very honest with you, because I tried to maintain unbiased opinion, but there has been a lot of feedback in regards to that. Now, to say, and I'm not going to discredit anybody, you're missing the forest for the trees. The fact still remains is that you had a choice to come to the Cayman Islands, and I'm speaking based in total of the feedback that I got. You made a decision to come here to work on a work permit because a Caymanian-owned business, Caymanian otherwise, made a compelling argument for you to be granted work permits and possible renewals, maybe multiple employers, that got you the amount of years for you to be eligible to apply for PR. If these are the conditions for applying for that PR, and if the condition says that you pay a fee annually because they're removing that bondage of just being locked in for one employer, you pay a fee each year, as you alluded to it, a glorified work permit. Caymanians are saying you came here to work. You didn't come here to apply for PR and then Caymanian status. So the key is, if you, unfortunately, it may sound cold, it may sound heartless, but these are the rules of that approval. You pay it or it's taken away. And if it's not working out, then I'm sorry. And you don't have status yet, leave. Now, we have to remove emotions from it. But at the end of the day, we cannot say we are protecting this back door and trying to close it, and you then almost getting a free ride by not paying your fees, and there's not enough resources, there's not enough enforcement arm to prove that you're really, really not working. Because you know you have some bad actors out there. But the semblance is, we don't care, it's black or white. It is what it is. You adhere to the terms and conditions of the PR approval. If you can't pay, if you're racking up a lot of fees, revoke it, slam, bam, you're gone. Now, whether or not that's fair, that's another discussion.
Yeah, I don't think you understood me, Sabrina, like in terms of where I was going, because maybe I didn't express it properly.
Okay, go ahead.
I am actually saying that I understand why Caymanians feel that way. I understand it better. Why? Because they are saying, why should we be fair to you in that sense, if you can define that to be fair? Okay, let's take the word fair out of it. Caymanians are saying, look, I'm a Caymanian. In my own country, we are now a minority in the workplace, in the society, in the businesses. We are a minority. That is the biggest unfairness that you can ever have. So you, with your little unfairness that, well, but you see, why are you kicking me out because I didn't pay my fees? I understand why Caymanians feel strongly about that. I understand why Caymanians agree with you, what you just expressed in the last 2-3 minutes. I understand that. It is because if you look at that case in isolation and you say, oh, this person lost his PR, I couldn't get it without any fault of their own. If you look at it in isolation, you will say, oh, it's unfair. But if you look at it broadly and compare it to how egregious it is that Caymanians are now being pushed out of their own country, then you will understand why Caymanians feel that way. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, gotcha. Good. Yeah. So I hope you've mended all of the hearts that you broke for not being understood before.
I like the way that you mended all the hearts.
2 to 3 minutes to do it because I got feedback. What is he saying? What is he saying? So I'm happy that I did that because you've mended those broken hearts.
Yes, because if you look at it in isolation, yes, you might say, maybe it is unfair. But when you look at it broadly, there is a much greater unfairness that is taking place. So you should understand why those people are feeling that way. They might have maybe not attached so much importance if they knew that they were doing well. But in the circumstances, I understand why a lot of people feel that way. Now, then hoping that we've mended a little bit of that, then we have to say, who is to blame for this? Who is to blame for this loss of turf and lack of priority for Caymanians? It is the successive governments, okay? They are the ones who haven't really faced this issue. Because if you start off from the Stardust grants, 2003, 2004, there are some lessons that should have been learned. What were the lessons? There were a number of unintended consequences or some others which were just not foreseen. A lot of people didn't see that the schools were going to be flooded with, as you've been talking about, you now have status. Now the kids come in. I remember speaking at that time to somebody who used to work for Children and Family Services, said, the number of kids who have come in, the schools are full. And then The other thing is this. They have brought this immigration law, right? And they say, well, now you need 9 years or 20 years for you to be able to get status and to get PR. But I want to emphasize that people must understand that this doesn't apply to anybody now, and it won't apply to anybody until in 9 years and 20 years. It does not mean that it's only those people who have applied for PR and who have applied for status who will be grandfathered in. Everybody is being grandfathered in the sense that if you are here today, they have already said that your 9 years or your 20 years does not start now. It starts, or it doesn't start like when you came. It starts from the time the law comes into force. So in other words, this new 9-year rule for PR will not catch a single person until 9 years from the 1st of April. Okay? And then the one about status, it will also not catch anybody until 20 years from the 1st of April. So now you tell me, what is going to happen between now and then? Okay, let's go back to what happened about the TLEPs. You remember what happened to TLEPs? You will understand the TLEPs, I think, better than I do.
The term limit, yeah.
Yeah, they had said, well, there will be these people who will come in. When they come in, they will sign a document which says that they will have no right to apply for PR. And the Attorney General advised, yes, this will be legally effective. And I understand some people did sign. But when the time came close to 8 years, they undid that policy of TLEPs and allowed those people to apply for PR. So that, in other words, they announced the policy and the people said, oh, yes, this is going to be good. But was it implemented? No, it wasn't implemented because basically it was deferred. It had to be implemented in about 7 years. When that time, the government said, no, we are going to change it. So fast forward to today. What do you think is going to happen? Is there any guarantee that in 8 years, for example, a new government won't come in and say, oh, yeah, I know that they had increased this period from 8 years to 9 years. I think we should change it because there have been people here, who've been diligent. Maybe we should bring it back to 8. Or before that 20-year period comes, they will say, well, I think really 20 years is too long. I think let's bring it back to 15 years. Do you see? There is no guarantee that this law will not be changed. So ultimately, it may not apply to one single soul. Why? Because you put it too far into the future. And then what has the government done in terms of consultation? They have said, well, you see, those people who are already here, it would be unfair if they are not allowed to apply for PR. We go back to that lady's question. Unfair to whom? Okay. Unfair to whom? Because apparently the government is far more concerned about saying it's unfair to allow, to make people who are already here be subject to the 9 and 20-year limit. They are saying it's unfair. But is that fair to Caymanians? Exactly. Is that fair to Caymanians? You see, that's why I said when we spoke the last time with that lady and she asked the question, she just sort of like stimulated me to think about it. And that's what people should be doing. They should be saying, okay, government, you are saying that it's unfair to apply it to people who are already here. But is that fair to us as Caymanians? And that's what the government has not answered. And one of the reasons that they have not answered this is because they know very well that legally speaking, it can be done. Let me give you an example about, I know I gave you some complicated example about how these retrospective laws operate, but let me give you perhaps a simpler example today. This government is basically saying, no, we can't say that somebody who is already in Cayman, like for example, if they've been here for 3 years, we can't say that in 6 years they have to be rolled over. We can't say that. Now they know that legally you can, but as a matter of policy, they've decided they don't want to do that. Let me tell you how laws normally operate. Imagine under the Liquor Licensing Act, right? It says that you can't get a liquor license unless you've got you are 21 years old, right?
Right.
That's what it says. Now, let us imagine the government was to say, hey, 21 years is too young. Let us make it 30 years. Let us say that only people who are 30 years old can get a liquor license.
Mm-hmm.
Let us imagine again you were 20 years old and you were expecting in 1 year to apply for a liquor license. Then the law changes to 30 years.
Yeah.
Are you going to say that because I was already alive last year, that the new law won't apply to you? No. It will apply to you. And that's the way the law operates. Because if it doesn't operate like that, you are implying that the only people to whom it will apply are those who are born after the law comes into effect.
Yeah.
Do you see?
Well, Mr. Balika,
So
to be honest with you, I really hope that when we hear this right now on the floor of Parliament, that it will be contrary to all that you are saying in regards to this. You get where I'm coming from with that? All right.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it'll be not as I wouldn't even use the word damning, but disappointing to really the realities of it. Because I don't think people are able to even understand the magnitude of what you're saying. When certain things take an effect 9 years down the line versus all of those who are being protected, who are already a part of their cycle now, they will still be looked at under the current law, not the new one that's about to take effect on All Fools Day, April 1st. And then the new set, you will not see that number until 9 years after the fact, because they wouldn't be eligible. But for everybody who's already on their term to 8 to 9 years, they will be preserved and can still apply. And then as of the 1st of April, another tranche of anyone who's arriving in the islands will then be eligible to apply. But they would have to meet that 9-year threshold at that time.
Yes.
So we're dealing with two sets of people and two booms, not including those that we're going to actually say is automatic just because of their birth and all of their offsprings that could possibly benefit as well.
That's another group. Yeah.
That's a total different group. And I read an article, I think in Cayman Compass, that the person's born on the 26th of March, 1977 and earlier is some number of 2,600 and odd. That's just those who are registered birth. That's an individual. So let's say that one single person has an average or 2 or 3 children that could benefit, and then their kids can benefit.
Well, you see, one thing that I like that you've gotten into the figures now, because this is what, again, the government... Are you there, Sabrina?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I just went there a little bit. You see, that's another thing that the government is not doing. It is not getting into the figures. You can have all these tough laws that you want, but if you are not telling people, this is how much we project will be given by way of status grants by this year. This is how much we projected will be given grants or rather PR by this year. Then they will say, for example, like, they will take all those 3 categories. Yeah, those who are already in Cayman. Yeah. Oh, by the way, anybody who comes in Cayman to start a contract on the 30th of March, where we haven't got to 30th of March. Anybody who comes up to the end of March will apply under the old law.
Yeah,
okay?
Meaning the old law would still be, if they decide to apply for PR, they would be judged under the old law.
And under the old law. So there's that category. And then there are those who will, when they come, it will be up to 9 years, and then they will apply. So at the end of the day, they haven't given us how many people they expect in the next 9 years to get PR under the old law. How many people after that will be able to get PR in 9 years' time, will be able to get status and so forth. How many people who are born before March 1977 will be able to also apply for status and all that. they haven't given those figures. If they were to give those figures, I'm sure that people will find out that the number of people getting PR and will actually increase, in my view, because remember that the population has been increasing very sharply. So that I believe that in 9 years' time, probably there will be about 9,000 new PR grants.
And how much we gonna?
Yeah, because last year, how much were they? They said there were 1,500 or something like that. Okay, there was a small backlog, but really, I think it will settle down somewhere around probably 1,200 per year. Okay, so if at the moment, okay, they say Caymanians are 37%, that actually includes
The status
people.
holders, that's not your
because it's not the Caymanians is of right. Because the Caymanians is of right, according to the research done by Dr. Mikaina Scott 2-3 years ago, Caymanians is of right in the workplace were only 28%. This is about 2-3 years ago. So that if today you look at it, it's probably down to 25. And with these measures, which are not really changing anything, I think in about 10 to 15 years' time, we're down to probably about 5%. And what I'm disappointed is that apart from a few people loud mouths like me, and the very decent lady who you spoke to earlier today, who talk about this and show concern, it appears that people have sort of like quiet. They seem to be satisfied with what this government has done.
No, they're not, sir.
Or some people,
sir, they're not.
They are not?
No, they're not satisfied. They are politically fatigued. The atmosphere and the environment that is creating, you speak up, you're blackballed, and they're scared. And only a few are willing to speak out. But people are fatigued. Some have completely shut off. Some don't even know they have disconnect. And then the few that are even talking about it, you are not hearing about what they have to say because they're doing it behind closed doors to play it safe in the event that there may be a contract or a job that could be impaired or removed from, or their opportunities in their workplace. And that is creating a society that we are almost behaving as though we're in a dictatorship environment. Sir, I am telling you, people are disgruntled, but they are upset and they feel that nobody cares, nobody listening to them until it's time to get your vote.
This is why I enjoy exchanging views with people, especially people who are on the ground. Because now that you've said that, it is now rolling over in my mind because I see that a lot of people who call in, they say, well, we're trusting this government. We know that it is tough. Like they are saying, they are giving these statements which are not a full-blown endorsement.
It's not true.
But they are saying
Sir, if they wanted to really speak their mind, a lot of them, we had one commenter that says, I don't know from what angle they're coming from, that they wished they could call in and speak their mind. At least that commenter said it. You have a lot of persons, Mr. Balika, that are just fuming. They're upset. But then we have to live this life that you're scared to speak out because our society is so small. You're either got some family member that's working in that ministry. You either got somebody who's probably on a board or who is applying for a position within government or could possibly be barred from getting a contract. Sir, it is just real. And what people are doing is that they're capitulating. They're not saying anything because of fear of being blackballed, fear of maybe even getting a lawsuit, because you got to be careful even how you speak nowadays, or you'd be served a writ.
Yeah, you see, this is now making a lot of sense to me because I thought that once, you see, when the first immigration amendment bill came out, I remember that I was speaking on another talk show with somebody there, and then it was unclear at that time what the government meant when it said, "Oh, your period, if you are already in Cayman, your period will start on the 1st of March," which was the period at that time.
Yeah.
And exactly, and then I remember exchanging with this talk show host. I said, they haven't said very, very clearly how it will affect people who are already in Cayman. And then I went into detail with, how there is no expectation that a law will never change. And I gave that legal advice practically 4 or 5 times on that particular show. And then people started to say, well, let us get clarification from the government. And eventually clarification came in from the premier, from the deputy governor, and the people finally understood that, the people who will be grandfathered in, it's not just people who have applied for PR or have applied for status or are going to judicial review. That's one class. It is everybody who is in government today or even is in Cayman today, because they are saying this period of time, the new 9 years, will start when the new law. And once they clarified it, I thought that then people would say, hey, this is not what we wanted. Now, I know one caller, I can say Lord Graham. Lord Graham called and said, well, now that we understand it, but why are you exempting these people? He is one of the few people, together with others, who have said, why are you exempting?
But do you understand?
And
before you doing that, they couldn't even identify what was going on. And how long were we talking about it here?
Exactly.
We were talking about it for weeks.
Yeah. To me, you see, I'm very interested in this subject matter because, look, I came to Cayman, spent 12 years in government, 15 years in 3 years in the private sector, a total of 15 years. And I really, I get along very well with Caymanians. That's why if I disagree, I want to find out exactly. That's something that I'm missing,
Yeah.
And very often they put me right. A few times maybe we just agree to disagree, but most of the time I get to agree to see where they are coming from. And when I went into government, the people who tried to complicate my life were not Caymanians. It was status holders. They came in practically, started saying to me, oh, you want to train a Caymanian? You want to train, why are you rocking the boat? I said, look, I mean, I've got PR and I'm working here and I'm reasonably secure, but now I want to help somebody who is local. And these are people who already had status, and yet they just wanted to persecute the local people. So I started developing this feeling that you came to Cayman the way I came to Cayman. You don't have a right better than me. Okay, a Caymanian has got a better right better than me, and I give that to them. They don't have to ask that from me. But you came the way I came. You can't start telling me and my Caymanian friends to say, well, look, we are now the ones who are going to determine how this place is going to run.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I just believe personally that the government, successive governments have let people down. I think they should hold this immigration thing now. They should in particular tell people, they should say, these people you have grandfathered in, have you grandfathered in because of a legal impediment, or are you grandfathering them in because it is a question of policy? To me, it is not enough even to say, oh, but you see, we can't let all the teachers go. Nonsense. If you think teachers are hard to recruit, then all you need to do is start advertising early. In any case, I can tell you, for example, all the lawyers who are in the portfolio of legal affairs, you can get rid of all the foreign lawyers who are there one day, and you can get an equally competent number of lawyers from the UK, from Jamaica, from Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, this idea that no, we can't be too tough about this immigration law because you see, otherwise things are going to go down. There will be nobody to do the job. Come on. I am one of the best known legislative counsel in the Commonwealth. Okay, if you walk into any legislative counsel's office in the Commonwealth, they will tell you they know somebody called Billy Simamba. They've read his stuff. And yet I left that department. It is still functioning up to this day. So you tell me who is indispensable. Okay? So to me, I, in a way, I am glad to know that people are unhappy but they are fatigued.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I just urge those people who can be able to talk to be able to talk. What I have seen is that among the politicians also, that is a little fatigue I have seen. I can tell you, for example, Kenneth Bryan was very strong about immigration from the very beginning. You remember when you put up the sign, the sign, immigration reform now. At that time, he was unpopular. They said, how can a member of cabinet, do that, and so on and so forth. And then later on, because people were talking about it, then it became a cheap cause. Now everybody, saying, "Oh, let's have the changes. Let's have the changes." But right now, what they have done, they have not done anywhere near what they need to do, both for jobs and for immigration. I could tell them a bunch of things they can do, like amend the public service management law. I can tell them a bunch of things they can do to amend the judicature law. I can give them legal opinions which show them that whatever they want to do, like what people want to be done, for example, to reduce the number of grandfathering in, I can give them all the case law which shows that they can do that and it will stand up in court. But the problem is they just don't want to do it.
But
I think it's very unfair.
If people hold their voices and hold it back because they can be appeased just by being appointed to a board or a council. You see where I'm going by that? That you actually have to hold back really, truly what you feel inside because you fear of not being appointed or retained because you speak your mind for the greater good. That's sad. As a matter of fact, you're selling yourself too cheap. You're selling yourself out too cheap.
I know individual cases where because somebody had become an activist, they decided in the end to sort of like silence them by putting them on a particular board. But you see, what people have to understand, Sabrina, is this. There will be no next time to fix immigration law. This was the time to fix it. There will be no next time. The population is now getting towards 100,000. 4 or 5 years ago, we were thinking that this is maybe 10 years, 20 years down the road. It is now just around the corner. I have heard those statistics. I think I mentioned them to you that Steve McField was saying the population growth among Caymanians is of right, is about 1.5% per year. The population growth among experts is about 2.75% per year. And that is telling you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that basically the population of indigenous Caymanians is dwindling at a very fast pace. And in about 10, 15 years' time, it will be hard. It will be too hard to do. Now, I can tell you that even now, immigration is hard to do because it has been left too long and because of scare tactics and that kind of thing. But to me, this was the last time to do it. And quite frankly, what they have done, it hasn't scratched the surface. They have not dealt with the fundamentals. All that they have done is they have ironed out a few creases and they are talking tough, but actually they haven't done the nitty-gritty. What are the figures? How many people do you want to be in Cayman in 10 years' time? How many lawyers do you want to... Look at, for example, are there any targets in government regarding the rate at which people should do Caymanians should have certain positions? In a lot of governments, they put targets in. For example, you can say portfolio of legal affairs. How many people have got status? How many people have got PR? How many people are local? Okay. How many lawyers are we training? This is how many lawyers we're training. Okay. What are the targets that we want to set for Caymanians to come in? People to get articles and so forth. There are no targets like that. I can tell you Portfolio of Legal Affairs has got an unwritten policy to discourage Caymanians from staying there. That's why they don't stay there. There was a person there, I won't call his name. He worked in government and then went to the Portfolio of Legal Affairs. He got called to the bar and he was ready to work and become a Crown Counsel. Oh, they created some position for him that he's going to be a legal advisor to the police. So this is somebody who is a budding lawyer. They are still very young. I'm looking at the time. He's very young. Well, he's not young. He was in his 50s, but he's a young lawyer. You want him to be around the offices there, to work with experienced people, to get help as he is working. They took him instead to go and have some office near somewhere there on Walker's Road. He was working alone, no library, no assistant. How do you grow a person like that? But the reason was they just wanted him out of the portfolio of legal affairs. And they've got other people who they've tried to just sort of throw aside. And the government is not doing anything about that. You can't operate without targets in any management system. But this is what government is about. I know it will be tough to do, but to me, let me just close on this. There will be no next time with immigration. There will be no next time. If it's not done properly now, it is all lost. That is my view. I'll leave you there, Sabrina.
Thank you
for the time.
very much. Always a pleasure having you on, sir. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Yes, there you have it. And we're almost to the end of today's episode of Sabrina Speaks right here on CMRTV.com. Tracy says, all we need is Jesus. The world will still be here when we're all gone. In Denver, CE Banks or something else. The problem, caller, is that they refuse to take advice and scrutinize the various advice given. Be Happy says that, boy, I'm happy I don't vote. We need real immigration change, not some cheap fix. Caymanians vote for real change, in Denver says, because they have their own that they made promises to foreign land. Now, I'm just really hoping, thank you all of you who have commented, who have joined me today. And thank you for the compliment. Somebody was complimenting me on my hair. It's earlier on. But yeah, see, Mr. B is spot on. So I think that's D. But yeah, this is real. We're talking about even the amendment to the Health Insurance Amendment Act. Remember, for everyone that gets status, and let's just deal with one particular class of people, that anyone who is born on the 26th of March, 1977 and earlier is automatically Caymanian. And then the second set of people are those persons who were born 1st of November, 2004, I think, and can establish whether that one parent was legally domiciled in the island at the time of their birth, either by status or grant. And then there's another tranche, automatic. There's another tranche, whether or not you were born outside the islands, but you must have one parent who was domiciled in Caymanian at birth. Remember, all of these are automatic if this bill goes through. And we're talking about cost of and access to healthcare. If that number for those three tranches of people alone is, let's say, 3,000 people, please note that they're being automatically saying Caymanian. They would be entitled to apply for assistance. Let that sink in. Yes. Thank you so much, Real Michelle. But that brings me to the end of today's episode of Sabrina Speaks. Tomorrow, we will continue with this as a recap of some of the amendments. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to double check exactly this new one, if it is just a repeat. I want to make clarity, because read the proposed amendments on the Immigration Transitional Act of 2022 revision. That just came out. I'm going to go and I'm going to look at that myself. So yes, Don, your question was, oh, law. And I said, yes. And I know you're probably responding now to the medical insurance. But once this all comes in, Donnie, and they're all automatically deemed Caymanian, whatever that number is, Don, and they are deemed Caymanians, however they're going to prove that, they will have access to free coverage. And please note, they will be allowed to vote. I bet you I didn't realize that. Oh, yeah. Because they're automatic. But we'll continue this discussion, because remember, Wednesday, the 4th meeting of the 2025-2026 session of Parliament takes place at 2:00. Let's see what's on the order paper. And I'm hoping that we will see what's on the order paper in short order so that we will be prepared. And I encourage you all to tune in and join in. And we will do our best to try and do a synopsis and a recaps of the happenings here on Sabrina Speaks. And also tomorrow evening, People's Progressive Movement is actually starting their listening tour. And they kick that off at the Constitutional Hall, 6 to 8 o'clock. It has been my pleasure bringing you another episode of Sabrina Speaks right here. I thank all of you for tuning in, for participating, for sending me your WhatsApp messages, for commenting here on your platforms. And definitely, I love your calls. But until tomorrow, please be safe on our roads. Please have a good evening. And as usual, I love you lots. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for putting up for me. Thank you for putting up with me. Thank you for tuning in. God bless. Good night. See you tomorrow.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.